everybody. Welcome to this edition of Turnaround Marriage. We are so glad that you're diving in with us today. And we're going to talk about a subject today that is something, not only something that we see, but just the hard truth, the hard reality about anybody who's realizing that they're struggling in their marriage. And we'll talk about that today. And if you're out there and you're realizing your marriage is not what it should be and that you guys are struggling more than you'd like to, well, this is exactly the place that you need to be today.
Yes. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are Scott and Rachel. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that little bell and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. We are here to encourage your Christian marriage, and go ahead and feel free to share the video. Also, if you're on Facebook, let us know you're watching and say hello and give us a big thumbs up, because we're going to be talking about the hard truth about fixing your marriage.
It's so true. And what happens, guys, when people struggle in their marriage? What is the first thing that begins to happen? You start to see the problems. You start to see the dysfunction. You start to look at the other person and you start to realize they're at fault. You're seeing the things they're not doing. You're starting to point the fingers, maybe not physically, but in your mind, of the ways that they're not meeting your needs, or that they're just acting frustrated, or that they won't listen to you, or they don't seem to care about your feelings, or they don't want to engage with you about that subject. And it can be really frustrating when you're realizing you're seeing them drift away. You're seeing them maybe push your buttons. You're seeing them not engaging in the marriage that you wish that they were. And you start to get really, really frustrated. And then you really see them more at fault over time. It tends to be, this is natural. We tend to see them as more at fault in the marriage. And it's not a fun place to be. And it's not, we've been there. But the reality is we're really starting to begin to look at the speck in our brother or sister's eye and forget about the plank in our own.
Yeah, it's true, Scott. And I know for ladies, when your husband starts withdrawing and he starts disconnecting and he starts just not pursuing your heart, sort of ignoring you, and you can start to have these wounds fester. What happens is our eyes start to look for all the ways they've offended us, all the ways they're failing us, all the ways that they're frustrating us, and those become magnified. We can start to recognize they're not really listening. They're just kind of grunting at us. They're not looking at us in the eye when we're sharing something. They don't really want to hear about it when we tell them how we're feeling. And the husbands can withdraw more and more. And we just have more and more eyes to watch their faults and failures. Gosh, they're letting the trash pile up. And man, they're not taking me out on dates anymore. And man, they don't even listen to me. They don't even ask about my day.
Right.
And you start to see more and more of their failures. And here's the thing, ladies, like this can really lead to you trying to get your needs met, but probably in an unhealthy way. Maybe nagging more, maybe complaining more, maybe, begging and pleading him to spend more time with you. And what does that do to a man? And I'm not saying it's your fault, ladies, but I'm saying that men, if your ladies are complaining and nagging and being crabby, it is easy for you to want to disengage, for you to start to see, gosh, all the ways she's driving you nuts, all the ways she's frustrating you, all the ways she's failing you. She's not encouraging you. She's not telling you what a great provider you are. She's not encouraging you. She's just nagging you. And you feel like you're one of the kids. And it can grow more and more and more as time goes on. And as these wounds start to fester, so that now our eyes only see the other person's faults, failures, and flaws. We only can notice the way they're sinning against us in the marriage, or the way they're failing us. And this can be a really, really tough place to be, especially if this has gone on for months or years or dececades even.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen overnight. That's what you're pointing out.
It does. Slow fade. Yeah.
It's not like tomorrow we're going to wake up and everything's going to feel like terrible. You're so right, Rachel. It does build over time. And from a man's perspective, it might look a little bit different. It's like she is just turned into this woman that's like, she's just trying to push my buttons, or if she were just a little kinder with me, if she was sweet with me a little bit, if she would be open to sex every blue moon, instead of it's feeling like she wants to even be around you. It's like, I just want to get away. Like, I'd rather go drink and get away. I'm not saying me, but that's where a lot of men go, just to escape. And so it's not fun for either of you in that place when you guys start to have that separation and the walls are built and the vicious cycles are deeply rooted, and they crept up on us. It's not like we intentionally got there. But this is what happens, guys, once you start to get in that place. And we see this all of the time.
Mhm.
And it really breaks our heart, and it solidifies the brokenness. This is what happens with a lot of honorable Christian couples. They see the disconnect in their spouse a little more clearly than in their own. And they'll say, I'm not perfect, but my husband, I'm not perfect, but my wife. And they're really putting the fingers. And then this is what it looks like. I'm beginning to pray. I've been praying. I've been seeking God. I've been asking God. I've been really wanting for a miracle in my marriage. And it doesn't seem like God's hearing my prayers, but I'm praying fervently. And God, I'm praying one day is really, he's the one that can solve this. He's the one that can change everything. He's the one that can intervene and really, really work in a powerful way. But here is the problem with that, guys. We believe in prayer. We absolutely do. But this is the problem. You're praying for your spouse to change primarily. That's the problem. That's the problem. Can God change hearts? Absolutely. He's the only one that ultimately really can. But if we're just sitting there waiting and saying, God, change him. But wait a minute. What did Jesus say? To look at the plank in your own before you're worried about the speck in your brother's. And he wasn't saying that there wasn't a speck in your spouse's eyes. He was saying you need to be mindful of your own mess, your own mistakes, your own sins, your own failures, and own that completely. And so that's like an escape hatch, an escape route. And really, it's not an escape route. It's a path that means you're probably, unless you change your attitude, doomed to failure. Because what's going to happen? It's not going to get better if you're just sitting waiting around for them to change. You're going to get more angry. You're going to get more frustrated. You're going to blame your spouse more. And guess what's worse? Then you're going to start to blame God because he didn't change them.
Whoa. Drop the mic on that one.
It's true.
And those are well-meaning, honorable Christians who are doing that. You know, we were there for a long time. You could read a decade of my journal probably, and me just complaining to God about Scott. Okay, and I was well-meaning.
I don't want them to read.
And
that.
I had a pure heart. Yeah, I probably shouldn't
No,
share that.
Please no.
But hear my heart. And when you're in the midst of depth of pain, and you feel like your spouse is a million miles away, the thing is it can really feel like, God, where are you? Why won't you change them? Why won't you work in their heart? And you're begging God and you're praying. And guys, listen, if you're in an abusive marriage, again, we disqualify this. This is like, you do need to pray for your spouse, and you do need to get to a safe place. We're talking about just two honorable Christians who are they found themselves disconnected or fighting or just finding all the faults and failures in each other. And the marriage has begun to unravel. And when you're well-meaning and you're praying for your spouse and you're like, God, would you please change their heart? God, would you please change their heart? Guess what the enemy does with that?
Yeah.
Of course, God can work in their heart, but what the enemy does with that is he actually now sharpens your eyes to see all of those things in your spouse, to notice those times when they're not changing, when they're not doing the things that you've been praying for, when they're not acting the way you want them to act or responding the way you want them to respond. And so it can actually backfire in many ways because it's just perpetuating the idea that it's all their fault. And guys, there's probably blame to go around. In fact, we know there's blame to go around. I don't care if your spouse, has done the most awful thing in the marriage. There's a part of it. You've got to see, where did I fail? Where did I go wrong?
Yes.
As hard as that is to take, because we teach total ownership. Total ownership. You've got 100% own whatever part of the marriage failure that's yours. And so, when one person, though, can begin to shift and change how they're showing up and begin to look at themselves instead of them, because at the end of the day, who are you able to change but yourself? What are you able to affect except for how you respond? When one person can show up and do that, the entire dynamic of the marriage can change as well. And that's the powerful message of hope. And we're not telling you not to pray. We're telling you to pray earnestly. but pray earnestly, not just that God would soften their heart, but that God would change you, that God would show you your blind spots. And maybe that's where you need outside help, because maybe the blind spots are so big and so blind, you can't even see what you don't see. And that's why you might need help. If this has been going on for years or decades, we're here to tell you you're going to need help, but we're here to tell you that hope is possible. It's not only possible, but it's available to you.
Yeah, you're so right. And you hit on something that's really important that people absolutely need to hear. And that is a number of things, actually, that
Well,
people
yes,
need to
I
hear.
did.
And this is one of those things is we hear all the time. It always takes two to fix a marriage. When they're saying that, what they mean is my spouse is more at fault and they need to change more. But is that actually true? In a marriage, there's always two that have gotten it to that place. But what we're saying is today, if only one person can own their failings, sins, mistakes, and the way that they're even responding to their spouse, 100%, it can change everything. We use this example all the time. Like if your spouse is making you frustrated and not listening to you and not giving to you what you need, and you're getting angry and you're getting frustrated by that, and you're just more and more day by day, it's building and building and building. Whose fault is it, theirs or yours, when you are operating in that place of frustration and anger?
Yeah.
Whose fault is it? So if one person can change those dynamics and own completely their own sins, it absolutely has a huge impact on the other person, and they can begin to start nourishing their spouse and their marriage and help to soften them in a powerful way. One person, we see it all the time with our clients. One person can radically change the dynamics within a marriage.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So guys, if this is resonating with you, and if this is like, oh my gosh, you've been watching us, we're here to tell you.
We hear that quite a bit. Yeah.
There is hope for you. We have a masterclass for you, the 5 simple shifts that Christian couples can use to turn around their marriage and fall back in love again. And that's at turnaroundmarriage.com/class. And also we offer a complimentary breakthrough call if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of what's not been working and what do you hope and dream your marriage could be. We offer that as well at turnaroundmarriage.com/call. It could be the best 45 minutes of your life. What we're here to tell you not to do is to keep noticing all of your spouse's faults and failures and stew in your own hurt and do nothing. Do nothing. That's what we're telling you not to do. So go ahead and watch that masterclass or book that call. You can check us out at turnaroundmarriage.com. And we hope to talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.